Gaura Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bol.
Glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Oh, please accept my all glories to Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our continued study of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are in the third canto, the fifth chapter, and this is verse 51. So this is the end of the fifth chapter of the third canto. Tato vayamat pramukha yad arte babhu vimat man karavama kimte tvamnat chakshu paridehi shaktya deva kriyarte yad anugrahanam tato vayamat pramukha yad arte babhu vimatman karavama tvangna svachakshush paridehi shaktya deva kriyarte yadanugrahanam tato vayamat pramukha yadarte babhuvi matman karavaman kinte tvangna svachakshu paridehi shaktya Deva Kriyarte Yadanugrahanam. Please chant.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी। ततो वयं मत प्रमुख यद अर्थे भावुविमातमन् कर्वाम किं ते त्वं न स्वचक्षुः परिदेहि शक्त्या देव क्रियाते यद अनुग्रहाणाम्। हरे कृष्ण।
ततो वयं मत्प्रमुखाय दर्ते बभूविमात्मान् कर्वाम किं ते त्वं न स्वचक्षु परिदेहि शक्त्या देवा क्रियार्ते यदनुग्रहाणाम्। हरे कृष्णा।
ततो वयं मत्प्रमुखा यदार्थे बभूविमात्मन् करावाम किं ते त्वं न स्वचक्षुपरिदेहि शक्त्या देवक्रियार्थे यद् अनुग्रहाणाम्।
Anyone else? Okay. Tataha. Therefore, Vayam, all of us. Mat Pramukha, coming from the total cosmos, the Mahat Tattva. Yat Arte, for the purpose of which Babhuvima, created. Atman, O Supreme Self. Karavama, shall do. Kim, what? Te, your service. Tvam, yourself. naha, to us, svachakshuhu, personal plan, paridehi, specifically grant us, shaktya, with potency to work, deva, O Lord, kriya arte, for acting, yat, from which, anugrahanam, of those who are specifically favored. Translation by Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O Supreme Self, please give us, who are created in the beginning from the Mahat Tattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind directions on how we shall act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency so that we can render you service in the different departments of subsequent creation. Purport. The Lord creates this material world and impregnates the material energy with the living entities who will act in the material world. All these actions have a divine plan behind them. The plan is to give the conditioned souls who so desire it a chance to enjoy sense gratification. But there is another plan behind the creation: to help the living entities realize that they are created for the transcendental sense gratification of the Lord and not for their individual sense gratification. This is the constitutional position of the living entities. The Lord is one without a second, and he expands himself into many for his transcendental pleasure. All the expansions, the Vishnu Tattvas, the Jiva Tattvas, and the Shakti Tattvas, the personalities of Godhead, the living entities, and the different potencies, are different offshoots from the same one Supreme Lord. The Jiva Tattvas are separated expansions of the Vishnu Tattvas. And although the Jivas have different potencies, they are all meant for the transcendental sense gratification of the Supreme Lord. Some of the Jivas, however, wanted to lord it over material nature in imitation of the lordship of the personality of Godhead. Regarding when and why such propensities overcame the pure living entities, it can only be explained that the Jiva Tattvas have infinitesimal independence, and that due to misuse of this independence, some of the living entities have become implicated in the conditions of cosmic creation and are therefore called Nityabhadas, or eternally conditioned souls. The expansions of Vedic wisdom also give the Nityabhadas, the conditioned living entities, a chance to improve, and those who take advantage of such transcendental knowledge gradually regain their lost consciousness of rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord. The demigods are amongst the conditioned souls who have developed this pure consciousness of service to the Lord, but who at the same time continue to desire to lord it over material energy. Such mixed consciousness puts a conditioned soul in the position of managing the affairs of this creation. The demigods are entrusted leaders of the conditioned souls. As some of the old prisoners in government jails are entrusted with some responsible work of prison management, so the demigods are improved conditioned souls acting as representatives of the Lord in the material creation. Such demigods are devotees of the Lord in the material world, and when completely free from all material desire to lord it over the material energy, they become pure devotees and have no desire but to serve the Lord. Therefore, any living entity who desires a position in the material world may desire so in the service of the Lord, and may seek power and intelligence from the Lord, as exemplified by the demigods in this particular verse. One cannot do anything unless he is enlightened and empowered by the Lord. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 15, Mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. All recollections, knowledge, and so on, as well as all forgetfulness, are engineered by the Lord who is sitting within the hearts of everyone. The intelligent man seeks the help of the Lord, and the Lord helps the sincere devotees engaged in his multifarious services. The demigods are entrusted by the Lord to create different species among living entities according to their past deeds. They are herein asking the favor of the Lord for the intelligence and power to carry out their task. Similarly, any conditioned soul may also engage in the service of the Lord under the guidance of an expert spiritual master and thus gradually become freed from the entanglement of material existence. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord, and anyone who puts himself under the guidance of a spiritual master and acts accordingly is said to be acting in terms of buddhi yoga, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 41. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahu shakka hyanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, fifth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. So the verse, again, this is the demigods speaking. They're offering prayers, and they say, O Supreme Self, Krishna, please give us, who are created in the beginning from the Mahat Tattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind directions on how we shall act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency so that we can render you service in the different departments of subsequent creation. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminita Namane Namaste Sarasvate Devi Gauravani Pacharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarne Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So, as mentioned, we concluded this chapter today. These last several verses were the demigods praying to the Supreme Lord. And in today's verse, the conclusion of this chapter, we hear the demigods praying to Krishna to award them with two very important things, the knowledge of what to do and the potency to do it. And of course, their understanding that their duty are to be engaged in Krishna's service, that it's not what to do and how to do it, and the potency to do it, but the right consciousness by which to do that. So this, by the way, should be our mood when chanting japa, right? Many of us have heard before the translation of the Hare Krishna mantra that we're addressing the energy of Krishna and Krishna himself, and that we are asking him to engage us in his devotional service, right? So we, living entities, jivas, should understand our relative position to the Supreme Lord, and knowing fully well that everything comes from him, including us, We should earnestly pray for him to award us with the knowledge and the potency to render him pure devotional service. Now, these two things were mentioned not only in the verse, but in the purport many times, that the knowledge and also the potency are both coming from him, right? Otherwise, there cannot be any success, right? We cannot know what to do, nor can we possess the ability, the capability, the potency to perform what needs to be done without Krishna, right? Because we know from Bhagavad Gita that he is the ability in all men. He's the strength of the strong, the wisdom of the wise, etc. So, in order to know what to do, to have the knowledge, and to have the potency to do it properly, we should approach the Supreme Lord in this mood. And then, understanding our relationship with Him, we should perform all of these activities exclusively for His pleasure, not ours. So it's clear in today's purport why we rebellious jivas are here in the material world. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that as far as when and where this took place, that's, let's see, how exactly did he word that? Regarding when and why, sorry, such propensities overcame the pure living entities, it can only be explained that the Jivatattvas have infinitesimal independence, and that due to misuse of this independence, some of the living entities have become implicated in the conditions of cosmic creation and are therefore called Nityabadas. So, in order for love to be relishable, cherishable, there has to be the option to not love. It has to be a choice. If there's no choice, then it's just mechanical and there's nothing sweet about it, right? So therefore, part of our eternal nature is having free will. This is what Srila Prabhupada referred to as the infinitesimal independence, right? So it's free will. But due to misuse of this infinitesimal independence, some of the living entities have become implicated in the conditions of cosmic creation and are therefore called Nityabadas. Of course, we know from other purports the reason it's called Nityabadas, eternally bound, is because there cannot be a point in time where we can trace that out. As far as we understand, there was no beginning because we haven't experienced that beginning. We only experience what's happening now. So so it's clear in today's purport why the rebellious jivas are here in the material world. We misused our free will. And our position, our relation to the Supreme, and our duty are also made clear. Means our position means infinitesimal part. Our relation to the Supreme means servant to the infinite whole. And our duty, what we're meant to do, based on that relationship, that understanding, uh, that's all clear in this purport. So that being clear, we can live our lives in ignorance or in knowledge. Means here we are, we're in the material world, we've misused our free will. Here we are. We can continue to misuse our free will and live in ignorance, or we can use our free will properly and engage in Krishna's service. That means um, acquiring through Krishna's mercy knowledge and also acquiring the potency to perform these activities. Now, whether we're actually consciously serving Krishna or not, all knowledge and all potency is coming from him, right? But to acknowledge that and to ask him to not only give you the prerequisite knowledge and potency our ability, capability to do these things, but to be able to do them for the right purpose, right? To understand that Krishna is in the center and that everything is to be used in his service. So, again, we can live our lives in ignorance or in knowledge, depending on how we want to use our free will, our infinitesimal independence. But if we choose knowledge and if we execute or apply that knowledge favorably under the order of the spiritual master, then we can, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned in this purport, regain our lost consciousness, right? That's our pure Krishna consciousness. And at the end of today's purport, Srila Prabhupada quoted a verse. And the story behind this verse, it can help us understand the extent that we should follow the instructions of our spiritual master, right? So Srila Prabhupada, in this purport, he didn't give the translation to this commonly quoted verse, nor did he give any further elaboration on its inclusion. But those who have read Srila Prabhupada's work are quite familiar with the verse and quite familiar with the context and the importance that this verse has on every single one of us. So, whether we know it or not, this verse has had a huge impact on each of our lives, and it has affected us all in a major way. So, before we get into that, first we'll give the translation because Srila Prabhupada, he just quoted the Sanskrit. So, the translation is, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. Means they're very distracted by many things. So this verse and its commentary had a very profound, strong influence on our Srila Prabhupada's actions and, more importantly, on his mood, right? So I'm going to read a few excerpts. Actually, yeah. First, I'm going to read an excerpt from Science of Self-Realization that tells the story of Srila Prabhupada's encounter with the commentary on this verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and how much effect that had on his life. Then I actually want to read some of the Srila Prabhupada's purport to that verse, and then also a few other citations, because this happens, it comes up often. Srila Prabhupada brings this up often in his purports. So worth us, it's worth it for us to understand the importance of not only this verse, but the implications of it, how to apply it properly, uh, and how not to misunderstand it or just imply it, just apply it partially or improperly. So, first off, here is a quote from Science of Self-Realization, Chapter 8. Srila Prabhupada writes, therefore, as far as possible, one has to execute the order of one's spiritual master. That will enable one to progress. That is the essence of the favorable execution of Krishna consciousness. Now, Srila Prabhupada tells a story. In my old age, I have come to America, and I am trying to teach Krishna consciousness because my spiritual master gave me an order that I must do it. It is my duty. I do not know whether I shall be a success or failure. It doesn't matter. My duty is completed if I can present before you whatever I have heard from my spiritual master. This is called the favorable execution of Krishna consciousness. Those who are actually serious should take the order of Krishna through the representative of Krishna as their entire life and soul. One who sticks to this principle is sure to progress. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke in that way, and my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, used to say, quote, the spiritual master is the transparent medium, end quote. For example, I can see the letters of this book very nicely through these transparent eyeglasses, without which I cannot see because my eyes are defective. Similarly, our senses are all defective. We cannot see God with these eyes. We cannot hear Hare Krishna with these ears. We cannot do anything without the medium of the spiritual master. Just as a defective eye cannot see without the medium of spectacles, so one cannot approach the Supreme Lord without the transparent medium of the spiritual master. Transparent means that the medium must be free of contamination. If it is transparent, one can see through it. So that's the quote from Science of Self-Realization, chapter 8. So Srila Prabhupada is revealing that that the reason that he came to America to preach this Krishna consciousness was because he got the order of his spiritual master, which wasn't strange. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave that instruction to many of his disciples. But what's unique about our Srila Prabhupada is that after reading the verse that was quoted at the end of today's purport, and especially reading the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he understood that the order of the spiritual master should be taken as one's life and soul, not just an instruction or a suggestion or one of the many important things in life. No, the only important thing in life, one's actual life and soul, the order of the spiritual master. Because the instructions of the spiritual master are designed to awaken our Krishna consciousness. And that's the only important thing. Therefore, the orders of the spiritual master are our life and soul. So Srila Prabhupada understood this, and he applied it to his life. So he didn't just take this as a suggestion from his spiritual master. He took it as his life and soul. And so, as he mentioned, in his old age, he boarded a steamship to cross the Atlantic, suffered 2 heart attacks on the way, never gave up his determination or his faith. When he arrived in America, it's not like he was able to just start preaching immediately and the people were susceptible to understand hearing the message. No, there were many difficulties. But our Srila Prabhupada, having taken the orders of his spiritual master as his life and soul, was able to successfully establish the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and change all of our lives. So, the next thing I want to read is Srila Prabhupada's commentary on this verse Bhagavad Gita, verse 241. So, I'll read the translation again. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched, right? So we aspiring devotees, we are meant to be focused on the central point of Krishna consciousness. This should be the one-pointed intelligence. Srila Prabhupada's purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmaka intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 62 states, Shraddha Shabde Vishvash Kahe Sudhrida Nishchaya Krishne Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Kirtahaya. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. Really good definition of faith. Unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reaction from past good and bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. So in today's purport, we were talking about the knowledge and the, what was it, potency? Knowledge and potency, yeah. Knowledge and potency that the Devatas were asking. So the resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sudorlabha. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva, or Krishna, is the root of all manifested causes. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches, so by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, and so on. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practice under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student, and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadan nagati kutopi, dhayan stuvams tasya yashas trisandyam, vande guroshri charanaravindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. End quote. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically, but practically. When there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts, right? So this is what it means by vyavasayatmaka buddhi. Our only focus, the only focus of every aspiring Vaishnava should be to serve Krishna, to please the spiritual master, to follow the instructions of the spiritual master as one's life and soul in order to please Krishna. If that is not our sole focus, our vyavasayatmaka buddhi, our one-pointed intelligence, then we will be distracted by many other things, right? Because we're giving value to things that actually don't have value. The only thing we have of value is our pure consciousness, our proper use of free will. And the only way to do that is to follow the orders of the spiritual master, right? We on our own have misused our free will, and here we are in this material world. But by the mercy of the spiritual master, if we take his instructions as our life and soul, not just some aspect of our life, but our actual complete life and soul, then we will be able to successfully be able to properly use our free will and reawaken that eternal relationship with Krishna. So, some other citations of this very important verse, and I say it's important to all of us because had Srila Prabhupada not had this deep, profound understanding of this verse, and had he not taken the orders of his spiritual master as his life and soul, we would not have access to all of this transcendental knowledge. This is the reason why he did all of this. It's the reason why he translated all of these books that we're studying. It's the reason why he established temples that we can go to visit and worship the deity in the association of devotees. It's the reason we have access to the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's the reason we have access to our spiritual masters, right? So this deep understanding of Srila Prabhupada's and his application of that deep understanding are what provides us with the knowledge and the potency to successfully navigate through this material realm and how to get back to the spiritual realm. So a few more excerpts that I will read. This one comes from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 22nd chapter, verse 7 purport, wherein Srila Prabhupada writes, "This combination," referring to the instruction of the spiritual master and the faithful execution of the instruction by the disciple, makes the entire process perfect. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in his explanation of the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, that one who wants to be certain to achieve spiritual success must take the instruction from his spiritual master as to what his particular function is. He should faithfully try to execute that particular instruction and consider that his life and soul. The faithful execution of the instructions which he receives from the spiritual master is the only duty of a disciple, and that will bring him perfection. One should be very careful to receive the message from the spiritual master through the ears and execute it faithfully. That will make one's life successful. Of course, Srila Prabhupada is speaking from experience here. He had done that, and that made his life successful. And that's how he knows that this can also make our lives successful. If we take his words and the instructions of our spiritual masters, who are representatives of Srila Prabhupada, then our lives will also become successful if we have this one-pointed, steady intelligence. This next one, also 3rd canto, this one's from the 24th chapter, verse 5 purport, wherein Srila Prabhupada writes, "Here it is clearly said, Samyak Shraddhaya, that with great faith one should receive knowledge from the spiritual master and with great faith execute the performance of service." So again, we're hearing about knowledge, receiving knowledge from the spiritual master, and then with great faith execute the performance means have the potency to apply that knowledge. The same two things that the Devatas are asking in today's Srimad Bhagavatam verse. Srila Prabhupada continues. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, has especially stressed the instruction of the spiritual master. One should accept instruction of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. Whether one is liberated or not liberated, one should execute the instruction of the spiritual master with great faith. It is also stated that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. One does not have to seek the Lord outside, he is already there. One simply has to concentrate on one's worship in good faith, as instructed by the bona fide spiritual master, and one's efforts will come out successfully. Now, it's worth pointing out here, and it paralleled to Srila Prabhupada's statement in the Science of Self-Realization, that here's the part. After he says that one should accept the instruction as the spiritual master as one's life and soul, he adds, whether one is liberated or not liberated, one should execute the instruction of the spiritual master with great faith. Means it's not one's goal to become liberated, it's one's goal to serve the spiritual master, right? So in his what he mentioned in Science of Self-Realization, after he said, in my old age, I have come to America and I'm trying to teach Krishna consciousness because my spiritual master gave me an order that I must do it. It is my duty. And then Srila Prabhupada writes, very much in parallel to what we just read from the Srimad Bhagavatam purport, I do not know whether I shall be a success or a failure. It doesn't matter. My duty is completed if I can present before you whatever I have heard from my spiritual master. This is called the favorable execution of devotional service. It means we're not attached to the results. We know that Krishna is in charge of the results. All we can do is understand what our spiritual master has given us and faithfully relay that to anyone else. Whether it's successful or not, that's up to Krishna. I have a couple more that I'd like to read. This one is from the same chapter, 24th chapter, 3rd canto, verse 13, purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has stated that the order of the spiritual master is the life and soul of the disciples. As a man cannot separate his life from his body, a disciple cannot separate the order of the spiritual master from his life. If a disciple follows the instruction of the spiritual master in that way, he is sure to become perfect. Right? So not just that they're appreciating the orders of the spiritual master, but that's the only thing that is driving them. Then 4th canto, chapter 20, verse 13, purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, we have to stick to the principles stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Every man's duty is to receive orders from Lord Krishna or from his bona fide representative and take these orders as his life and soul without personal considerations. Again, always, immediately after he says that we do this with our life and soul, it's then further elaborated without personal considerations. Whether there's going to be liberation or not, doesn't matter. The life and soul is to serve the spiritual master's word. Whether it's successful or not, doesn't matter. The success is in following the orders of the spiritual master. That's where the real success is measured. Srila Prabhupada continues. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states that one should not care very much about whether he is going to be liberated or not, but he should simply execute the direct order received from the spiritual master. Right? So common theme, and this comes up often. And so just because sometimes Srila Prabhupada will only give the Sanskrit of this verse in this context, doesn't mean that that's all we had to do is read that Sanskrit and then move on, right? We have to understand that when he's referring to this verse, he's referring to the success of this movement, right? He's referring to our potential success, the instruction that he followed from his spiritual master, the instruction that he is giving to us, either directly or through our specific spiritual masters. And the result, if we actually do that, if we can practice Krishna consciousness with one-pointed intelligence, vyavasayatmika buddhi, and do so without regarding success or failure, liberation or not, then our lives will become successful. That will be the success. So one more before we stop for discussion. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 7, verse 72, the purport. So first, Srila Prabhupada is quoting his spiritual master. He writes, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj comments in this connection. So here's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's comment, quote, one can become perfectly successful in the mission of his life if he acts exactly according to the words he hears from the mouth of his spiritual master, end quote. Right? So obviously, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also understood this concept that Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is explaining. And thankfully, our Srila Prabhupada also understood that and applied it, and we are all reaping the benefits of that. Then Srila Prabhupada continues after quoting his spiritual master. In this purport, he says, this acceptance of the words of the spiritual master is called Shrauta Vakya, which indicates that the disciple must carry out the spiritual master's instructions without deviation. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks in this connection that a disciple must accept the words of his spiritual master as his life and soul. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here confirms this by saying that since his spiritual master ordered him only to chant the name of Krishna, he always chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra according to this direction. Krishna Mantra Japa Sada E Mantra Shara. So, this idea, this concept, we can call this the single most important concept in Krishna consciousness. To accept, understand, and apply the orders of the spiritual master as one's only goal in life. Not only as one's only goal in life, but as life itself. One's life and soul is following the instructions of the spiritual master. And we know it from Shastra. We've heard it through Shabda. We see through the examples. We understand it logically. So we have access to a complete understanding of this. And we know that, as in today's verse, today's Srimad Bhagavatam verse, that everyone, even the demigods, right, who are deputed, they're highly qualified and they're deputed to uh, perform this secondary creation, right, and to make sure everything is running smoothly. Even they, who are highly qualified, they have some material desires as well, right? And so they understand that it's within their best interest and the only way to be successful to pray to the Supreme Lord and ask Him for the knowledge and the potency by which they can successfully engage in Krishna's service, right? And not just engage in sense gratification, but actually to have the knowledge and the potency and the consciousness directed properly to serve Krishna, the master of all senses, Rishikesh. So let's stop or pause here and see if there are any questions, comments, discussion, or if anyone has more appreciation of this particular verse or this particular concept of Srila Prabhupada taking his spiritual master's instructions as his life and soul. Please feel free to unmute and share as you desire.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Very nice class. Thank you.
Ravaneshwar.
I have a question. So not everyone, in fact, probably a lot of people have not had the opportunity to receive direct instruction from a spiritual master. And, sometimes, preach to the West or spread Krishna consciousness can be very broad in the scheme of what we might be doing in our service and our day-to-day activities. So how can one navigate that and find a path for themselves within that?
It's a very good question, and it applies to all of us. So, as we surrender unto Krishna, he rewards us accordingly. So, whatever position we are in our Krishna consciousness, however much advanced we are, the instructions are given. Now, you said sometimes we don't have access to direct instructions from the spiritual master, and that's true. Uh, if we at least have our connection through Srila Prabhupada's books, then these instructions pop right off of the pages, right? We've all had experience of this where we read the same purport hundreds of times, and each time we read it, it's a much, much deeper understanding. They're just popping right off. As we surrender, as we become sincere, this will happen. But also, Krishna will also send us people to explain it properly. So we're not just, in our minds trying to speculate what's coming off of the page. We actually are hearing from someone who has seen the truth, right? And we're inquiring from them submissively and we're rendering service unto them. Um, so whether or not we can get a direct personal instruction from our Diksha guru, we can absolutely uh, get these instructions from Srila Prabhupada's books, the commentaries of the Acharyas, uh, and so on and so forth. But especially in the beginning, we have to be very careful that we're properly understanding what we're reading in these books. And that's where the spiritual master comes in. Absolute necessity to approach a spiritual master if one wants to fully understand what is going on. But I think there's something more to your question. Can you maybe either elaborate or give an example? Because I
Sure.
want to address.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think as we are navigating, we want to do service, and we might feel pulled into one project or another, and there's so many different ways within even within ISKCON to serve and to serve in that capacity. So one someone might receive instructions preach to students, and it's like, okay, well, I can do college preaching. Or someone else might receive instruction to go do prasadam distribution or book distribution. But if someone has not received that direct instruction from a guru, from their spiritual master, from someone, how do they know how to navigate the different service opportunities to serve within the movement and within their lives?
Okay, good. So Srila Prabhupada explains in his books that Krishna consciousness is for everyone, and that all we have to do is whatever we're already doing, we just have to redirect our consciousness. We have to change it from I'm doing this for me because of the way it makes me feel, because the way it nourishes or entertains me, um, and redirect that consciousness to Krishna-centric, God-centric. So Srila Prabhupada, his instruction is the very principle of all instructions, right? So just like all service, all purposes that are served by a small well are also served by a large reservoir. One who understands this purpose of the Vedas, the principle, which is to, no matter what you're doing, do it with the consciousness to please Krishna. If one knows that, then one can apply it everywhere, right? One can apply it in any situation. So Srila Prabhupada was so kind to us that he over and over made it clear that anything that we're doing can be engaged in Krishna service. And that's the instruction. His instruction is do whatever you're doing, but do it for Krishna, right? So whatever we're doing, we can do for Krishna. And as our sincerity grows, uh, then the instructions will become even more clear. So we will have a devotee that can help us determine what, because that's the spiritual master's duty. They understand the nature of the disciple and they engage them accordingly, right? So the books in general can help us to get to a position where we've engaged our base desires in Krishna service and got the purification that comes along with that. And then we're ready to um, uh, find out how to more directly engage in Krishna service. And as you mentioned, sometimes that's preach to college students or book distribution or Hari Nam. But the principle in all of those things is the same. It's not that you're selling books or feeding people or entertaining others with song. It's that one is trying to please Krishna through these things, right? So even if the food is offered or the lyrics of the songs are transcendental syllables or etc. If our consciousness is not there, we will not be getting purified. Means the potency is all there. Krishna is not different from his name. We say the syllables Krishna. There he is. We don't necessarily see him, but he is absolutely there, right? So the purification comes when our consciousness is actually directed properly, right? So the more we separate ourselves from material consciousness, which is misuse of our free will, and the more we reconnect with our eternal constitutional nature, means properly using our free will, to that extent, we will actually see and understand Krishna. And the way to do that is to take the instructions of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. But that is the principle, and it goes through every instruction that the spiritual master is going to give us. It may look like it's preach in the West or do this or do that, but really it's keep Krishna in the center, right? And so for our Srila Prabhupada, it meant, okay, you keep Krishna in the center of your life, and you also teach a whole lot of other people how to do that, right? And then that's what he did. So that was his instruction. That's what he did, and that's what we're doing. So for us, the instruction is whatever we're doing in our life, put Krishna in the center. And then as our sincerity increases, and as the clarity comes in, and as we are able to take advantage of that clarity and act accordingly, then Krishna will send us. Uh, he can do it internally, or he can do it through a spiritual master, either diksha or shiksha, or just sadhus or any other way. But he will make it clear to us what we are to do specifically in Krishna's service. But we have to seek that out, and we have to do our best before we get that direct instruction to do whatever we're doing in Krishna's service with the right consciousness. And that comes through uh, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and asking, as the Devatas did in today's verse, asking for the knowledge and for the potency to properly carry out one's activities in this world, right? That's the consciousness. So that's the common factor throughout our entire philosophy. Is that
Thank
an
you.
yeah?
Yes, no, that was perfect. So we have to really focus on developing our consciousness,
Yes.
and then as we take on different activities of serving in Krishna consciousness, that our consciousness should be in that in Krishna consciousness, that the activities we're doing are then purifying for us and for others too.
Yes, yes.
That's
So
beautiful. Thank you.
yeah, if we stick to that principle, then it becomes very apparent to us that which things to accept and which things to reject, because we accept those things that are favorable for Christian service, we reject the things that are not, right?
Hmm.
If we already have that principle in mind and that's how we're acting, it doesn't matter what the situation is, we'll have the capacity to make the right decision. We could still misuse our free will and not make the right decision, but as long as we're sincere and we understand that and we're endeavoring to please Krishna, then all of that will become clear.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. That was a very important and what's the word when it applies to everyone? Applicable. Very important and applicable question. Anything else?
Thank you very much, Prabhu. The last one you're saying that applicable, it is sure that is applicable for everybody. And we need to have asking for the knowledge. So that's really something, Prabhu. Everything we have to put Krishna in the center, then we'll get the answer also.
Yeah, we really need to follow the examples of the demigods because they're highly qualified.
Yeah.
And still, they're asking Krishna for and the potency to do these things.
Yeah, that is true. We are small.
Very unqualified, and we're not asking Krishna. We're like, no, I got this. I'll just go to school and learn how to do this trade or whatever, and I'll figure it out on my own, or whatever. So no, we have to follow the examples of the Devatas who are more advanced and more intelligent than us to actually go to the source for these things, right? The knowledge and potency are important. They only come from Krishna. Um, we have to know how to use them properly to purify our consciousness and actually return to our original state.
Very nice class, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Especially you just told that Srila Prabhupada said, that putting glasses in, looking through glasses, that was really amazing. That is
Yes.
true. That is true.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. We can't see on our own. The spiritual master can help us see, but he
that's
doesn't
true.
put his own distortion on it. He just makes it clear. Yes. Very merciful. Dronacharya Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hi, Krishna Church, Andhra Prabhu. Thank you for a great class. My question was similar to Vrindavaneshwari's. I don't want to be redundant, but that was the same kind of the same thing I was thinking about. One thing that you touched on, I guess to take it a little further, that question, is that when Srila Prabhupada was given the order to come to the West to preach, that wasn't like a specific order that was tailored to him. That was more of a general instruction that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami would speak to his disciples about.
Yeah.
It wasn't, go to the West first, you'll go to New York, and then you'll set up a center and a storefront. Like he didn't necessarily, I mean, internally he may have and guided him through as he was by Srila Prabhupada's side as he was going through it. And it made me just think about kind of the general instructions that may be present before us that we may be unaware of. We may be thinking of like having that darshan where it becomes like illuminated, where the finger gets pointed to us and says, "You, now you are to do this." But if we hear, and I think you were alluding to this in answering the question, I'm just trying to process it myself. But if we're just aware and constantly hear the messages that come across via in the books by Srila Prabhupada and the teachings and lectures that we listen to, things become clear as to the way I should be acting, the way I should be living. Anyway, that's kind of what I was just as I was processing, your talk and the question that was asked. I was a lot of these. Sometimes we're just waiting for that moment, and that moment may not always be available. But as you know, as Srila Prabhupada, that instruction was a general instruction. He did have that moment. I mean, he did have that darshan, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj did tell him specifically. But we may have also heard things that we just felt, well, it wasn't directed specifically to me, so therefore, I'm waiting. Anyway, just some thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you for that. So when I was saying earlier how, like when we read through a purport 100 times and each time it's more illuminating. So Srila Prabhupada gave us everything. All of the instructions we need, they're there. All of the instruments that we need to reawaken our original consciousness and return to Krishna, it's all there. And chances are we've even read the exact statements we need to hear. But until we become sincere enough and surrendered enough, then accordingly, Krishna will reveal himself. So it's not necessarily that we didn't have access in that sense to these things. It's that due to our level of immature sincerity, although we have access to it, we don't understand it, which is why knowledge and potency, right? So if we're praying to Krishna for those things, and we're seeing that it's not by our own physical or intellectual prowess that we attain Krishna's mercy, but it's just Krishna's mercy. And we put forth our best endeavor to become proper recipients of that, then these things become clear. It becomes clear what exactly we are meant to do, right? And it's all there already. We just have to, gain access to the deeper meanings of it. So we have access to the physical, books, and we can read these things. But the understanding comes when we actually have this service mentality, when Krishna is actually in the center. So the more we exercise our free will in the right direction, the more clearly we will see how this world runs. And eventually, it becomes so clear that we actually spontaneously just engage in Krishna service. We're not doing it because we know it's right to do or to purify ourselves. We're doing it because we actually want to do it. There's nothing holding us back, right? And so this is the process of Krishna consciousness, and it's all there. It's all in Srila Prabhupada's books. It's all in the instructions that our spiritual masters have given us. And yes, we conditioned living entities have a tendency to focus on these details. Like, yeah, you told me to do everything for Krishna. Got it. But specifically, what should I be doing for? And sometimes we need to be told that, right? So sometimes someone needs to sit us down and say, all right, what are you doing anyway? What are you spontaneously just doing on a regular basis? And you just list that. You start saying what they are. Okay. Now, instead of doing those for your own pleasure, figure out how to do those for Krishna's pleasure. So sometimes we need that, right? And if that's what we need, that's what we do. But essentially, every single thing that we're attracted to, it's Krishna. And so we just have to allow our attraction to become appropriately engaged instead of currently it's inappropriately engaged. We're appreciating Krishna's potency in things, but we're exploiting them for our own personal sense enjoyment, right? So we're inappropriately using our spontaneous attraction. So if we learn how to appropriately act on our spontaneous attractions, then it'll become clear to us which things we need to or we should be doing. But yeah, as you mentioned, there are general principles that we should all follow, but also those general principles can become very specific to us. As we read through Srimad Bhagavatam and we start getting to know the character of these devotees, they will directly speak to us and tell us what to do. I mean, it's not that they physically step off the page and shake us by the shoulders and say, what have you been doing your whole life? But essentially, that's what happens. We realize through the character and behavior of these devotees, the decisions that they've made based on Shastra in the face of adversity, and the parallels to our situation, we can see that, oh, well, they were in a much worse situation than I am, and they were still able to overcome because they relied on Krishna. And although I personally can't overcome the obstacle, Krishna absolutely can. He's the only one that can. So if I put my faith in that, then I do that. So we will eventually get very specific instructions from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam through the mercy of the spiritual master and the examples of the sadhus. That absolutely will come. But we have to be sincere. We have to be diligent. And whenever that clarity comes, when we're chanting Hare Krishna, and Krishna is giving us that clarity, the Cheto Darpana Marjana process, we have to properly use our free will to bring us in the right direction and not go opposite. Was there just another hand? I thought I saw one, but my eyes were closed. And then when I opened, the hand went away. Anyway, no more hand. So was that okay?
Thank you. It's a great explanation and really good discussion.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anything else? We're about at that time anyway that we've gone over. So thank you all for joining. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripatindubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Very
Hare
much.
Krishna. Thank you so much.
Prabhu.
Everyone.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you all very
Thank you,
much.
Chair Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.